Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Skip Pope Stadium here at Sequoyah High School. I am Chase Schaefer. Last week we were joined by a former Sequoyah Chief in Eric Robinson. You knew him as E-Rob. Another person that knew him is my guest here today, Ben Farist. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. You know, another member of that very, very good Sequoyah Chiefs defense from back in that year. I think you guys only allowed, I think we talked about 90 points that entire season. Unfortunately, 50 of them were in one game, but,
right.
but for the most part, that defense was pretty lights out.
Absolutely, yeah. If you can think back, it's crazy to think that it's been, 13 years now, which is wild. But, yeah, those were some really good times.
Yeah, they were, and you know that team was so good, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that a member of that team, Tyler Reedy, had passed away recently.
Absolutely.
So we want to send our condolences here as members of the Sequoyah family out to his family as well and loved ones. But Ben, you know you've stuck around the Cherokee County area. It appears. What are you up to these days?
Well, I am at River Ridge High School. I'm in my 9th year, so straight out of college. I went to River Ridge, my first job, and I've been there ever since.
You like it over there better?
It's good. It's good. It's better. Yeah, that's interesting. My first game as a high school coach was here in Skip Pope Stadium. So
that's crazy.
But I was just on the other sideline, and I had to go in a whole different room. So yeah, it was kind of different.
You know, it was funny. A couple years ago, I was covering a game in Bartow County, and it was Cass versus Villarica, and I'm out on the field after the game, and who do I bump into as I'm trying to get a quote from the head coach at Cass, but Coach Cox.
There we go.
And so I walked up to Coach Cox for a second, and he kind of looked at me, and I kind of looked at him, and I was like, Coach, I don't know if you remember. And he goes, oh, my goodness, how have you been, man?
That's awesome.
But, you know, what's one of the reasons that a lot of people stay in Cherokee County? You know, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and everybody's just really high on Cherokee County as a community as a whole. Even when we talk to some of the members of the law enforcement public safety community, they say this is one of the best places to serve. So what is it about Cherokee County that stands out from the rest of the places?
Yeah, I think you hit it when you said community. You know, my dad opened up Sequoyah. He was one of the charter chiefs, as you like to say, in 1990, and that's when I was born. So I've been here literally my whole life. So to leave, going to college, I left, it's about 3 hours away. But being around here, my wife is from here. So everybody, extended family, that community really is truly just in Cherokee County. So yeah, that's it.
And more specifically, Sequoyah, you know, from a very young age, as soon as you guys start playing ball, right. You guys are kind of immersed in this Cherokee County style of football, particularly at Sequoyah because they play, a very unique offensive style. It's like from the time you put pads on, you know how to run a wing tee offense. Right. And it's just really cool to see how these kids go all the way from the beginning of the system all the way to the final product, which is what we see here. But speaking of that, since you're over at River Ridge now, how about this River Ridge Knights team? They've really turned it on the last year.
They have, and I think it's a lot of young kids that are finally older, juniors and seniors. As that maturing process happens from when they're young bucks to now, becoming upperclassmen, I think that you're starting to see that product on the field. I think tonight I see him over there, number 5. He's not dressed out, Amir Morrison, so. That will, I'm sure, for Coach Buddy and his defense is a great sight to see. But, yeah, they have played really well. A couple games recently, some, tough times here or there. But, yeah, they're huge up front. So, yeah, that's great. And
just to touch on Amir a little bit, obviously this is Chiefs TV. So we tend to lean a little bit more towards the Sequoyah side of things. But – talking about Cherokee County is to get opportunities beyond high school to play ball at the next level. Yeah. So I really hate that he's not been able to play the last couple of games. But hopefully we'll see him back on the field soon, and he can close out the season in tremendous fashion because he has had an absolutely stellar career over there at River Ridge. Last year was kind of that coming out party. And what do you see as him developing as a player from the time he started till now?
Yeah, I think you see a lot. Actually, I had a chance to teach him as a sophomore, and he's a good kid in the classroom as well, and I think it kind of starts there. But his explosiveness for what he lacks in size, and I always kid with him that he's like a short little kid, but he is quick, and not only is he quick, he has that speed where if he gets an open field, that it's pretty hard to catch him.
Well, being short doesn't necessarily diminish anymore. You think about the running back of the Atlanta Falcons, Mike Davis, he's only 5'9". So as long as you've got that can-do attitude and that work ethic, and you're willing to put in that time in the weight room and that time in the film room, anybody can be anything, especially we saw last night in the Browns game. Ernest Johnson was basically sending out messages asking for a job 2 years ago. He got into the Alliance, and then now all of a sudden he was had the highest rated game as a running back in the NFL, and he basically saved the Browns' season. Go Browns! But I mean, it just goes to show that size isn't everything. It's a big part of it,
Right.
but it's not everything. And speaking of that, you said this offensive line for River Ridge was massive.
Yeah.
And that's probably a big part of what's attributing to his success.
Correct.
You know, you see a good offensive line, like we talked about the Thursday night game last night. A lot of people after that game were saying, invest in your offensive line coach
Right.
and your strength coach, and everything else will work itself
You're
out.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think they've got some size, and like I said, when they're juniors and seniors, I think they're older on the offensive line. Maybe a couple sophomores. But yeah, as that size builds, and you're able, if you're a running back, not to get touched, from 1, 2, 3 yards on the opponent's side of the line, yeah, that makes all the difference.
If you've got that athleticism, you're going to blow
Absolutely.
it open. One more thing I wanted to touch on real quick. Looking out over towards our right-hand side as we've got Coach Ray Face Memorial Fieldhouse.
Right.
I talked to E-Rob about this last week. Everybody who played for Coach Face has a fantastic Coach Face story. Go ahead and hit on that for us a little bit, because I know you were one of his favorites.
Yeah, I don't know about favorites. That if he was yelling at you, I think that it was considered maybe a favorite.
Well, then he favored you a lot.
Yeah. Right. So a sophomore year, I got my first varsity action at Cherokee. And I remember I was like on the opposite side of the field, had to run like the full distance, and at halftime I got chewed out for not being like in the game. And then at practice, I was calling the defense or whatever, and there's just a lot of pressure. And that guy, and it's crazy to think now. Like I can remember walking in the team room right now, I could envision like his attention to detail, and he did it without the huddle and all that kind of stuff that like kind of does the stats for you. I mean, the amount of hours that guy watched film was ridiculous. But what a great guy, what a great coach. And really, I definitely was not as good as I was because I had him my sophomore and junior year.
Yeah, he really leaned on you pretty hard, but at the end of the day, it made you a better football player, which is why I think it's a great thing that they renamed the field house after him, because he was a fighter even when he was sick. He was still out there at practice and yelling at everybody. He might have needed a little help from that cane from time to time, but
you were kind of scared of the cane that might hit you. Yeah.
that was a new device he could use to motivate you. Absolutely. Yeah. But I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you for a prediction, but give me kind of a rundown of what you think is going to happen.
Well, as you have mentioned, even in the coaching change from Coach Maxwell to Coach Teeter, you still see the same style of offense. I know senior year for us with Swoop, we kind of changed some things just because of the nature of who he was. We got in the shotgun and got all fancy, but at the end of the day, it was still the wing T. So saying that, I think if Sequoyah can control the ball, which if you're a wing T offense you want to do, it would give River Ridge some potential trouble. But if River Ridge, they have the ability, the quarterback Carson Latham I love. He's a great competitor, just a great kid. And the tight end head, I love Jackson.
Yep.
I taught him last year. He is a stud. So I think if maybe Sequoyah can eliminate the big play, I think that, with Coach Buddy's defense, I think they'll try to do that. And I guess conversely, if Sequoyah can keep the River Ridge offense off the field, even without Amir in that big offensive line, so it should come into a good game, and as a rivalry game, as you want to call it, it's always kind of expecting, unexpected, maybe a fake punt here or there, fake field, just something to kind of flip momentum.
Something to keep it.
Correct. Especially early, maybe just to try to keep the home crowd in it, or for River Ridge trying to silence the home crowd.
Well, Chattahoochee onside kicked on the opening kickoff last week and recovered it. So I think Sequoyah, I think the jig might be up on that one. But,
right. So that's something that is when you're an extreme underdog, which River Ridge is not. But yeah, when you're Chattahoochee and you have nothing to lose, that is exactly what you do.
Well, and it's a really good thing too. Region 7 6A is so loaded this year. It's very solid this year.
Correct.
3 through 7 is still up for grabs.
Right.
I mean, all those teams are within a game or two of each other. With 3 games to go, we saw Sequoyah last year go on a really big run. I mean, they won 4 of their last 5 games. Ultimately, they ended up losing to River Ridge, but River Ridge had, the year of a the year of a lifetime
Correct.
last year. But it's really good to see when all of these Cherokee County programs are playing extremely well.
Right.
You think about Creekview, you think about River Ridge. Sequoyah's had its moments. They're kind of getting back to where they were, and it's really good to see all these teams doing so well and playing so close together. That Cherokee game between Cherokee and Sequoyah earlier in the year was
actually here for it.
Was one of the games.
I was in the opposite end zone, so I didn't get a good look as good as y'all did. It was kind of the jury's still out, I think.
I don't think the jury's out, but it doesn't matter at this point anymore.
Yeah, it's a moot point, right?
That one's going to go down in Cherokee County lore, and we're going to talk about that one for quite some time. I got an explanation. I wasn't buying it. I was like, well, you'd have a better time convincing me that he just didn't get there.
Right.
And anyway, that's a moot point. And shout out to our officials. Look, we understand this is not your day
it's a tough job.
It is a very hard job, and Matthew Trainer's a very tall kid. So you've got the fingertips to the toes of Matthew Trainer to figure out if he touches before he crosses the plane of the end zone, and you've got to do it with everybody standing right with your back to the student section of the team that's trying to win the game, and you're right there, and you just got done being like an investment banker or something for the day. So we get that, but at the same time, it was a really crushing blow because Sequoyah was really looking forward to that one. But Ben, we really appreciate you coming on. It's great to see that guys are still contributing to Cherokee County sports, and it's actually good to see you again. You and I hadn't seen each other in probably 13 years.
Exactly.
So hopefully we'll see you around basketball season this year as well. And appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Chase.